Call the meeting to order. Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to invite Mark Stephen Weaver to come down, please. And Mark is accompanied by his mom and dad and Mr. and Mrs. Weaver. Please join him as well. What we have here this evening, folks, is an official citation from the Board of Selectmen. I'd like to read it. Be it known that the Westport Board of Selectmen hereby extend congratulations to Mark Stephen Weaver. It is with great pleasure and a sense of pride that the Westport Board of Selectmen present to you this evening the official citation in recognition of your attainment of the highest rank of Boy Scouts, the Eagle Scout Award. On behalf of the citizens of the town of Westport, we are indeed proud to honor you for your outstanding performance and efforts, which are a source of inspiration to the community and to your fellow Scouts as well. And it's signed by the Board of Selectmen, Anton Vieira, Richard Spurlett, Stephen Willett, and Craig Dutra. On behalf of the Selectmen, we're going to go around the side and recognize you, Mark. You get a little picture here, I think.
Well, you don't want to hide yourself, Tony, there.
That's no problem.
All right, here we go. Say cheese. Thanks.
You know, we also have a Spotlight Award, and we talk about, if you can stay here for a second, folks, and we talk about citizens within the community. And there's quite an honor here. We certainly talk about Eagle Scouts in the past, and Mark is one of 3 boys from the Weaver family that have received an Eagle Scout Award. I think that's the first, actually. That's good. In town. So that's, you know, really noteworthy. And we talk about spotlighting families. We've got one right here. The other 2 boys, I guess, are playing hooky tonight or doing some other stuff. But Mark, in part of his Eagle Scout Award, was involved in the 4th of July parade this year for the town of Westport. And he had a float. He worked with middle school students and developed a float for the appreciation of music, and was part of his work in the scouting situation, but also inspiring a number of people at the middle school when it took to really, you know, appreciate the music and how music could affect their lives. Mrs. Weaver is very involved. You see around town in many fundraising activities, and she's musically inclined as well. I think I know she plays in for different church activities, and you might have seen her at soccer fields this year because she was involved in helping with the boosters and fundraising and supporting the soccer program. And Steve, you know, is a story in itself. Steve actually was a scoutmaster, I think, at some point. I went to the ceremonies yesterday and learned that Steve was gone for the last year in California. So Mark really worked without his dad in the last year after working with him as a scoutmaster for quite some time. Steve laid off last year and sought employment in his finance background in California. He's going to be, I guess, heading back again the follow on that. So it's been a real hassle for the family this year to try to deal with some of these economic situations as well. What a you know, an example of a family in Westport. 3 boys, all Eagle Scouts, a mom and a dad, very involved, both there yesterday in supporting their son as their brothers were. And you know, it just really, it's what the Spotlight in Westport's all about when we talk about families. This is a fine example of such a family. So again, I want to thank you, Steve, for your commitment. Thank you. I know we have one Eagle Scout. Mr. Spillett, you're an Eagle Scout too, right?
You were?
Yeah.
A long time ago.
Yeah.
I was just looking, even the The metals are different.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
The other one.
Yeah.
But mine's a fucking hammer out of pieces.
Okay, next, we have a public hearing, Verizon and N-Star Electric propose a new pole on Drift Road due to N-Star's electrical upgrades. We have some folks present.
I'm here on behalf of Verizon.
Verizon, please come on up. Have a seat and you can use the mic and
You're not talking to the mic, people at home can't hear.
yeah, why don't you slide that mic a little closer to you?
Okay.
The camera's got you over here, so.
Oh, okay. My name's Carolyn McCarran, and I am here on behalf of Verizon. N-Star is it N-Star, Ingrid, is upgrading along Drift Road. There's a pole that is guyed to a tree. They're not guying to trees anymore, so they're looking to put in a stub pole with a guy. It will be on public property.
Now, I think we notified the butters on this as well.
Yes.
Are there any butters present for this hearing? Seeing none? Any questions? Any motion?
Second with discussion.
Yes. Let's start discussion, Steve.
Yeah, if you look, the highway department had an issue that it not be too close to the road. Police department had an issue that may be an obstruction for the driveway, so we just want to be careful when we put that in.
I had a few questions as well. What's the procedure with Verizon? Verizon's responsible for the poles, so I assume N-Star contacted you folks, and then you folks came before us. Now, do you do that just when you have a police presence, or do you
The
replace
installation
poles?
of the
Yes.
pole, I can't really speak to them placing the pole, but it
Okay.
is done with dig safe and safety guides.
Well, the reason I'm asking is there are a number of other places in town where the dig safe people, I think that lasts for 30 days or something when they do the dig safe. There's some places in town where dig safe went back 2 or 3 times before the pole was ever moved. So it's, you know, we have a very colorful street because that paint doesn't fade as fast as people thought it would fade. So we got that issue. And we also have issues where, in some cases, there aren't policemen. And what's the policy of Verizon? I don't mean to put you on the spot because you're coming before us, but I did ask this of Diane as well, and try to get in touch with the folks from Verizon and N-Star. And I know the N-Star has explained that the poles are the responsibility of Verizon, so if they need to do work, they contact Verizon. But it seems that there's somewhat of a disconnect. In some cases where we do have police presence, and other places we don't, and in some cases they're replacing a pole, or increasing the size of the pole. Do you know if there's any policy within Verizon to handle this situation?
Excuse me, I'm sorry, I do not know the policy on the installation of the pole,
Okay,
but I can certainly get that information and get back to you.
I appreciate that. This weekend in particular, for example, there were a couple of poles that were in the process of being replaced. So the pole was cut and attached to another pole that was placed in the ground. And the wiring for N-Star had not been done yet, so Verizon had done their part of the work. But the ones that I'm aware of, they did not have a police presence. And I guess they figured they didn't need one, but one in particular, the corner of Jason and Kelly Avenue, there's a telephone pole right at that intersection. And some of the people that live on Jason and Kelly were asking about that because it's the only way in and out of that whole area.
Unfortunately, I can only speak to this particular
Well, I'm
pole.
just giving you a little
not-
background.
Yeah, I'm
So-
just not familiar with the other.
Would you be willing to take that back to them?
I can certainly bring the
appreciate that.
concerns back to them. I just can't answer.
Right.
Sorry, I will.
And the second one I'd ask if you could take back to them is on Adamsville Road. This board has been working on low-hanging wires on Adamsville Road for about a year and a half now. And Verizon has pointed to N-Star, and N-Star has pointed to Verizon. But it seems the biggest issue is the gap between the two poles and the weight of the wire going down. And during the fall of the year, before the corner's cut, it's very dangerous because people tend to go in and out in the corner area. So Diane's got the address on that, and again, we've probably, sent 4 or 5 letters, both to N-Star and to Verizon, and we don't have any answer. So we would like to know what the policy would be. My understanding is that with the storms, and that's the reason I'm bringing it up before we take this vote, is that if there's a storm-related situation, Verizon doesn't cover the cost of the police. But if it's a repair situation, Verizon does cover the cost associated with law enforcement in a safety situation. In this particular one, are you going to be needing police? Is that part of it?
Again, I'm sorry, I can only speak to the petition, whether you'll allow the pole there or not. I can't speak to the installation. It's not something I'm familiar with, but I will certainly do my best to
Yep.
get that information and get it back to you.
Well, I, for one, am a little hesitant about voting on something for Verizon without having complete information on this, considering the two examples I just stated. So I don't know the timeliness of this, I don't want to delay it, but it's been, at best, sloppy, to be perfectly honest, because it damages the neighborhood a bit in terms of painting. It looks a little sloppy when you're painting poles and painting street areas and marking for dig safe, and then Verizon doesn't come and follow up on that. So I think just out of common courtesy, we'd like to let the neighborhoods know that are going to be affected by this before that happens, if we can. And then secondly, we'd like to know what the procedure would be as it relates to public safety.
Certainly.
Appreciate that. Any other comments or thoughts?
No, but that's the town. We would require it if it's on a street, and if you ever see one that's on a street, let the police department know, they'll put a detail on right away.
Well, we did. And the issue of the town, there's a couple of law, well, let's say legal counsel issues around Boston now where the town has done that, and then Verizon sends an attorney's opinion back to them that they didn't authorize it, so they're not going to cover the cost associated with it. That's why I think before we start approving these requests, I'd like to know up front who's responsible for what the cost
I
associated with it.
definitely want to see that, so if you can make that available to the board, it'd be good. But, you know, I don't know if you want to amend it to include a police detail because it's on the side of the road and to take the recommendations that I mentioned into effect.
Sure. I have no problem.
I got that. Amend and police detail at the site. Did you hear that, John?
I did. Do you have that in the minutes?
We're adding it.
Yep.
He's adding it to
To
his
the
motion.
motion?
Yep.
What I was doing is trying to find a letter. I received another one today that details what I just said. And it was, I think, it came from the Mass Municipal Association. So Steve and Jack, if you take a look at that, it was written from the Verizon attorneys to a town.
Oh, not to us, though.
Well, no, but, I mean, the reason that Mass Municipal Association was sending it to us was because typically towns are ending up picking up the bills for stuff that initially they thought would be the responsibility of Verizon.
I
in
don't
terms of
believe
care.
we've had that problem, though, have we? I think some towns there are an issue. I've heard of a few. Because they'll throw 8 hours on to just do a 2-minute job, and that's a problem.
I just think that we should have this ironed out before we start the project. And again, tonight we're starting another one that we're kind of going here. By the way, I do have it here. This was by Jeffrey Stevens, a senior counsel for Verizon. And this was actually from Northstar, NSTAR, not Northstar. And they were dealing with, Freetown was involved in this a while back, Jack.
Yeah.
There's some case law on this. So again, this one on Jason and Kelly, I was very familiar with it because Verizon's trucks had to go on the property because they didn't have any police. And the problem with Verizon's trucks going on the property is that you had hydraulics that were dripping on the lawn of the property. So that's an added issue in terms of environmental issues. And, you know, I understand when you've got a large pole going in the ground, you've got hydraulics, there may be some fluid discharge there, but that is an issue. We're dealing with DigSafe and some of these other folks, there are some environmental issues that to be concerned with, so.
And
That's
the
a lot to
other-
throw on your plate, and I apologize for that.
It's
but
okay. The other road,
You got
the other area you were concerned with was Adamsville?
Adamsville Road, yes. And Diane can give you the details on that and send you copies of the letters.
Okay, and what I can do is pass this along to the Verizon powers that be. It's not anything, unfortunately, I can address for you as regards to the other roads or,
Well, they're
this
all
particular
public
installation
utility
as well.
companies, we understand that, and they work under regulations, and
Yep.
there's some things that they can and can't do in terms of they can't pass the charge on as a public utility if it's an emergency situation, because there are laws that cover that. But we're talking about repairs that Verizon's doing, or in this case, NSTAR is doing, but Verizon is participating because they own the pole. We'd like to have some kind of better coordination in that if we could.
okay.
Mr. Chairman, I gave the young lady my card
Good.
so that she can get back to me tomorrow morning.
So you won't be voting on it?
No, I didn't say that.
Oh,
No,
okay, I'm
that's up
sorry.
to the board.
I'm
I
sorry.
just-
Okay.
I just, again, and I appreciate you bearing with us, but we
Yeah,
had a
no, I
captive
understand
audience
your
here with you.
concerns, and I will certainly,
Thank you.
unfortunately,
Mr.
my
Vieira
powers
doesn't-
are very limited.
Mr. Vera doesn't like the paint. I personally don't mind the paint. I think it's good because utilities don't have to inspect their gas lines, which is a major problem with me, until there's actually a leak and possibly explosion. So I like to know where the lines are personally, but, okay, we made the amendment.
You misunderstood.
I understand what you said. The different colors have been on the road for months, and I personally, it's done next door to me, and I'm glad I know where the lines are.
We're required to have dig safe go. That's not the issue.
You said the colors on the road was an issue.
I
I
did-
said with me, it's not.
I did, sir, but that's because they had to come back 3 times before they changed the poles.
Understood.
I don't think it's unreasonable to expect a company to, if they call for dig safe, within that time period, to work within dig safe. If they come back a second time, there should probably be some explanation. They certainly shouldn't have to come back a third time. That dig safe is good for 30 days.
It would depend on the situation, emergencies. I don't know. I don't know their schedule.
Well, I
I'm
do,
just saying I'm glad
I
don't
do,
mind.
and I'm expect,
Oh, you-
I do
I
this
didn't know you knew their
particular,
schedules.
I
I
do
had no
this,
idea.
I do this particular situation, that's why I brought it up, that's why I'm asking them to look
fine.
at it. I'm not generalizing, I'm talking about particular issues here.
I got you.
The case down in Adamsville Road has been 2.5 years. I think at this point, we ought to kind of crank it up another notch on this deal, because I don't think we're talking generalizations. Talking about particulars that affect homeowners. And when you have issues where we're not clear, our own town isn't clear, whose responsibility is to, at this point, if they're going to go in this particular issue, we vote on it tonight, will there be public safety involved in this? Will there be a
Yes, we
policeman?
made it part of the emotion.
Well, we don't, at this point, we don't know if that's the case from their standpoint.
We made it part of the motion. If they don't have public safety there, it doesn't happen. Police there, it doesn't happen.
Okay, so my point on this is, there's others that are being done right in town that Verizon has not come before us for requests. Is that correct, Diane?
They only come here for easements, not.
No, please. Diane's nodding her head, that is correct, what I just said.
There are others done on town easements without the town's permission.
There's one being done right now in the corner of Jason Drive and Kelly Avenue that has not been approved by the town. They've cut down the pole, they have an attachment to the pole, NSTAR hasn't come in, but Verizon has done their piece, and when they did their piece, they didn't have a policeman present, and they had hydraulics that was on private property that sunk into the ground. Not a whole lot, but hydraulics. Those
That's
are
a
all
pole
facts.
replacement. That's not the same as a change into an easement. Pole replacement doesn't require us coming before us. Just a change in an easement, just so you're aware.
This is actually going to be a new pole that they're
Correct.
installing, so that it's not guide to the tree. That's
So when you
replacing
say,
the pole.
Steve, that any pole that's just being replaced, they don't need to have a policeman?
Correct. They've already got permission for that position. They don't need to come before us.
So they're on a public road, and they don't need to have a policeman?
They still
Oh, they should go to the
They still
police,
need
yeah.
police.
Oh, yeah. Like I said, call the station if they're on a
And
roadway.
they're on a public road, and they're replacing the pole, but they're not gonna notify us on their public road.
If you want to do a separate letter, I'm game for that.
No.
And I'm game for Adamsville.
I'm trying to get this
They know
clarified
they're
so
supposed to
people
be
can
calling the
understand.
station.
Okay? and-
People
and-
know.
What people
If
know?
anybody's on a roadway, you're
Right.
supposed to notify the police.
We had a call, we notified the selectman's office, the selectman's office then looked into it, they couldn't find any, they called Verizon, they called NSTAR, they couldn't find any record of Verizon doing work on that area. Is that correct, Diane? Okay, that's what I'm talking about here. And we need to get it clarified when we have Verizon before us doing some work for NSTAR, so this doesn't continue. I don't know how clear I can be. Okay? So the motion's on the floor in a second. All those in favor of the motion as it stands?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Appreciate what you can do for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, you want a separate motion for the Adamsville letter?
No, I take the lady at her word. I think Diane's
She's
gonna
just
send
gonna
it.
pass it on to supervisor. Do you want something from the town? If it's been 2.5 years, we certainly should have followed up on that.
Well, I
So
think that,
if you have,
could you give us a little bit of background? You have followed up on it a number of times, right?
I'm saying in writing from the Board of Selectmen.
It went back and forth. And what they were saying was the wires actually belong to Charter. Charter's standing there saying no.
Send it to all
NSTAR's
of
saying no, Verizon's saying no, but we've got them there and nobody's taking care of it.
Do you have the address so I can make it part of the motion? Or if I reference the Adamsville wire, you'll know what we're doing.
Exactly.
I make a motion that we let all the utilities in town be aware of a low-hanging wire that's a hazard on Adamsville Road. Diane followed through with a letter from the board to sign. Actually, I'll authorize the chairman to sign it. That's the motion.
So we have a second. Any discussion?
Second it.
Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you. Next, 6:15, a little bit behind, Steve Lombard.
Mr. Chairman, I prepared your FY15 preliminary budget, bringing it before the board tonight. I'd ask for you to allow me to go through it with you and explain the rationales, and I have a budget message attached to it. I'd like to read that into the record, but I'd like to go through with you what I'm presenting to you, okay?
We don't have a copy of that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Come in there now.
Oh, there we go. The big book.
Thanks, Steve.
Preliminarily, in the cover, you have a copy of the revenues that are available for the FY15 budget process going to town meeting. The second pages are your revenue and budget message that I present to you. The next several pages include your budget analysis that I've shown you once before. And also, there's a copy, your receipt history of all the estimated receipts up to 2013. Your next page is your estimated local receipts, identifies what they are and the amounts that we received for FY13 estimated and actual. The next page is your turnbacks, FY13 turnbacks. These are all part and parcel of your free cash calculations. The next exhibit is your long-term debt payment schedule, so you know what your long debt payment will be. The next projection is your 5-year revenue projection that I gave to you, this time without free cash being in there to follow the selectmen's policy. I've also presented that same projection with free cash included in it. The next 3 pages are the budgets that were submitted to me by all the departments in the town. You'll notice that the columns are in yellow is what was submitted to me. The orange-colored column is the what I've approved to be forwarded to the Board of Selectmen, and of course the differences are the cuts that I had to reduce that budget by to get within the FY 15 Proposition 2.5 levy limit. As you can see, the departments submitted a total budget of $15,674,715. I've reduced that down to $15,107,368. I've reduced that budget by $567,347. Also presenting you with a colorful pie chart that shows you how it breaks out the various forms of the general government of town. And also, the last page is your table of contents, which has the page numbers for each budget. And following that is a total budget for the town of Westport. And to make it even easier for you, as you go through those budgets, you'll see there's areas marked in yellow, and those are the areas that I've reduced and made changes to that. One of the preliminary changes I made right off the bat was I reduced all the stipends for all elected officials to $100 a year. That resulted in a savings of $65,000 to this town. I'll go through my budget message and read it off to you. I know I said I'd have it to you before the 15th of December, but I was able to present it to you because of the exemplary cooperation I received from all the departments in town. I've worked my secretary Diane to death putting this thing together so I can get it to you early on, so you have a few weeks to review it. She laughs, but I feel her pain. And this evening I'm presenting to you the FY15 Business Manager's Preliminary Revenue Forecast and Budget. The budget presented to you is based on providing the level of services that have been voted and approved by the voters at the previous annual town meeting as within the provisions of Proposition 2.5. This is not a level services budget, and this is not a level funded budget. This is a shoestring budget because I've had to make so many reductions to it. The operating budget for the town side of the government of FY15 is $15,107,368, an increase of 0.94% over FY14. That is exactly about $1,800 over my projected Proposition 2.5 budget of $15,105,000 that I've shown you on several occasions. The operating budget, there will be additional revenue due to the added growth coming in that is not certified at this time. I'd like to report to the board that the assessors have submitted their figures to the state for certification, and it appears that we'll have $80,000 more in new growth revenue for FY14, which will carry into FY15. And when you add the 2.5% to it, it'll realize an $82,000 additional revenue that I have not provided for in this budget. I'm cautioning you not to use that money. You need to find out exactly what the state revenues are going to be, because there's some unknown factors in here, such as the regional school budget issue that I don't know what that number is coming at. But that's an item that money should be saved for, because it affects both the school side and the town side, and where this money will be divided. I think that's an appropriate place to use it, depending on what those regional school budgets come in at. Included in this measure is the FY year 2014-15 budget analysis. Illustrates the Board of Selectmen's policy of not using free cash and/or overlay for revenue sources. The total amount available for FY budget, FY 15 is $32,878,000, an increase of $675,000 over FY 14. A total of $370,000 deducted from this for overlays reserve, which is used by the Board of Assessors for their appellate tax cases and other allowances and abatements they will adjudicate in FY 15. This leaves a total of $305,099 that is available for the town and school to use in their budget process. The second page of analysis is the comparative budget analysis, which illustrates how the sum is divided between the schools and the town. The following FY 15 budget impact analysis identifies the amounts of monies that will impact our budget process in FY 15. As you can see, there will be a significant impact on our operating budget for the town that will need to accommodate it in order to meet the provisions of Proposition 2.5. I've also included the town debt schedule and history of local receipts as part of this presentation. Several departments have requested added personnel as well as increased hours, and in all cases, I've deleted this from the budget. Based on the revenue that is available, we cannot accommodate these requests. That does not mean that these requests are not needed. It is because we cannot afford to add personnel within the current revenues. I've also deleted all stipends for all boards, committees, and commissions from this budget. Because the amounts needed to stay within Prop 2.5, cuts in this area are first to go because they need to keep the current staffing levels of the town as the utmost importance. I have deleted the budget line item for the reserve fund. We can address any shortfalls in budgets in May and June by either transferring money between the departments and/or at a special town meeting within the annual town meeting. All departments will be notified of this action when we need to really manage their budgets for the town meeting. The Board of Selectmen and its Finance Committee can place an article on the warrant and utilize overlay surplus to provide a reserve fund if they wish. In years past, if you remember, those who've been here for a lot of years, that's where the reserve fund was funded, was through the overlay surplus. Another reduction I made was to delete the purchase of 3 new police cruisers from the police budget, amounting to $114,000. I'm proposing to place an article using free cash to fund that cost. The rationale for this is that free cash was used in the FY14 budget to supplement the operation. It is clear to me that this is a one-time purchase of a capital item and an appropriate use of free cash. I've also reduced fire department salary item by $93,469, which represents 2 firefighters that were hired under the SAFE grant. The grant runs out in October 2014. The fire chief will be applying for another round under this grant in June, and if funded, these positions will continue FY15. If not funded, we'll have to do a layoff in this area. My reduction in department requests are not an indication that I do not support their request, but that there is not sufficient funds to meet their needs. The town really needs to address how it is going to meet the ever-decreasing revenues and the increasing cost of operations. I've included in this presentation 5-year revenue projections with free cash and without free cash as the board voted. This will show the disparity between the two analyses. I provided an analysis of the budgets requested by departments and the amounts that I have proof of, none of the salaries projected in this budget includes any increase of FY 14. As I explained earlier, the board need to meet all these departments and give them the opportunity to present their cases for their request. This is not an easy process for any of us, but a hard decision needed to be made to remain within the budgets given to us by the taxpayers. My decisions were not made lightly, but with the thought of presenting a budget within Proposition 2.5 and maintaining the workforce that is currently in place. The town has excellent personnel who work very hard at their jobs and are committed to serving the public in an efficient and courteous manner. I wish to thank all the department heads, boards, committees, and commissions for the cooperation in the preparation of this document. Also, thank you from me to all the employees for their support, especially those finance officers who helped me in the preparation of the revenues, forecasts, and budgets. Stephen Lombard, Business Manager.
It's a lot to digest here, Steve.
Yeah, especially getting rid of our thing.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Mr. Chairman, there's something in here for everyone to dislike.
I
Guaranteed.
tried to treat everybody fairly across the board, realizing that some elected officials and appointed officials have health insurance. I reduced the stipends down to $100 for each one, everybody across the board. Everybody has the same stipend, and it's something that had to do. And the unknown factors that we have to face is health insurance, unemployment insurance, the regional school budgets, and pensions are an issue that we need to address. I don't have those numbers in a county assessment. I don't have those numbers at this particular time. I've level funded those. That's why I'm cautioning you that if you, when meeting with your departments, want to make a change, you have to take it from somebody else if you want to increase something. So that's why I'm cautioning you to wait until all the numbers are in, because the only figure we don't have now is the state aid that I feel comfortable with. So until we get that number, we won't know exactly what all the revenues are, but it's going to be very, very, very lean, as you can see what I've done here, so.
Are you starting these cuts now, or are we starting this
July
July
1st.
1st?
July 1st. These are all July 1st.
Yeah, I know,
Fiscal
you're
15,
right,
but
but I just
all
said-
July 1st.
I don't know if we're gonna be already in a hole now, so we have to start cutting that now.
No, we balanced our budgets for this year, and you know, there's some unknown factors that we need to face, and so what I presented you is a fiscally responsible budget that meets the amount of revenue that we have. So, I mean, if there's any indications of any changes, you'll have to review these during the ensuing months.
Snow and ice is also another factor, unknown, of course, but the amount that's budgeted, as you'll see, is $70,000, which is what we budgeted last time. So that's another unknown. It is likely to cost us some additional funds that we'll have to deal
That was
with.
the last one we budgeted, was 135, 150,000.
No.
We started there.
We started there, and then
We
he kind of,
talked- Yeah,
Currently you have $750,000 in free cash. I'm suggesting that if we continue on this path, that $500,000 be reserved for capital improvement purchases. We need to replace equipment, some things we need done, and the remaining $250,000 balance be held over for emergencies that may come up at a special within the annual. So when you look at the whole package, that's where we are today as it stands.
Where is the veterans amount coming in and out that was expected? I don't see it on page 6, or is it somewhere else? 'Cause that should be.
The veterans, you're talking about the revenue receiving veterans?
Right, you got a
That's-
75 back or whatever
That's on the
it is.
cherry sheet.
All right, but nothing on our expected.
It wouldn't come in,
budget.
it wouldn't come in
Doesn't show
there.
there.
It comes through the cherry sheet.
All right, well,
The state reimburses us back for that.
Right,
it's,
but I think we should at least have the numbers of what we got this year, what's expected, how much we put out, that's laying out there. You know, do we have 100,000, we're expecting 75 there, et cetera, et cetera.
You know, it depends what the lag time with the state is, because they don't reimburse us back in the same year. Sometimes it lags a couple of years before they make their reimbursements back to us, so
I got you.
it's not a current
Yeah.
figure.
Right, but we still need to have an idea of what's going on.
So,
I think we've got some time, I appreciate this, this is really detailed. We've got some time to look at this as a board. We have 2 meetings in December, maybe if there are different departments that are concerned about what the bottom line looks like there at the departments, I'd encourage that we schedule them for the next meeting or so and try to address that. So maybe prior to finishing up in December, we can have a budget that we can move on, at least from the dollar standpoint, based on revenues. That doesn't mean that we can't look at other sources of revenues to do additional funding, but as a board, we're working with the monies that are available, as you mentioned, Steve. But I did have a couple of questions. In looking at this in detail and listening to your explanation, trying to do the both at the same time, it sounds like you made adjustments, as you said, with the stipends that elected officials would have. Everybody was cut down to $100. And it sounds like there may be a couple of firemen that, unless we get grant funding, may be laid off in this process.
Yes.
Is that the extent of the personnel issues, or everybody else covered under this?
Yes, hopefully, you know, we remain optimistic that, you know, they will receive that continuation of grant.
For the
We
two
don't.
firemen, right.
It's continuing into October. We have an ample opportunity to try to mitigate that.
And when we apply for that
Yeah.
up front, we had talked to folks about that, so I don't think that's a surprise, but certainly, we would try to go after the funding if we could do that, because it would be to our advantage if we could fund those 2 positions. But there aren't any other positions that have been eliminated in this budget, is there?
No.
Just a question of reduction for the elected
There's
officials,
requests that
and
were
then
made.
request and expenditures,
So,
tightening belts.
The only reductions I made was in the stipends and.
You cut our
moving-
pay is what you're telling us, yeah.
Moving
But
money.
we can
Not
take-
just us, Board of Health.
Well, you said I was to make many people happy, so I figured I'd start with my board.
Exactly, yeah.
When are you gonna let them know, the department
Oh,
head?
They all have it. I've met with every department head. They know everything here. I've given them copies, everything you have there, the budget they have now. And I met with
Their own
everybody.
budget.
Now, we're not talking about elected officials here that have full-time positions with the town.
No.
We're talking about.
Assessors and whatnot will be affected,
Right.
Board of Health.
Right. But certainly other elected officials that are treasurer, collector,
Oh, no, that-
all those
that's not-
folks, they
But
continue
they-
on as is. These are
right.
just folks that have been elected to serve
Right.
particular offices, that it's not a full-time position or a part-time
They've,
position.
They had their request for additional hours, additional personnel, and I couldn't accommodate that, and I met with that.
We've been able to cover all other council on aging, police department. The only 2 that we were identified are the ones that were funded by a grant in the past.
That's it.
And we're trying to go after that grant funding.
And as you go through the budget, so you can spot it easy, I did yellow
Yeah.
areas that I changed, so you can pick them out very easily as you go through the budgets and look at them, to see where I made changes.
So nobody else gonna reduce pay, no in-town employees gonna cut back an hour and stuff like that?
None. We're maintaining the level that we have right now.
Now, do all of our collective bargaining agreements expire in FY14?
Yes.
So there's no assumption regarding any increases in, okay.
I mean, if there's negotiated increases, we have to go back into the budget
Right.
and make reductions to meet those increases. And there isn't many places to go back and make reductions as you go through it.
Okay.
So we'll be contacting the unions this month, coming up to begin the negotiation process.
Okay.
Any other thoughts, comments?
Discuss it more.
I think it's well done.
Thank you.
Good job.
I wish you had a better message, but, you know.
Just don't shoot
it's
the
what it is.
messenger.
Yeah.
Now, at this point, Mr. Chairman, I think it's time to recognize what the real numbers are based on the rules of the game, if you will. Everybody knows that, that good policy doesn't include, good spending policy doesn't include using free cash to fund operating budgets in any year. So this budget has been developed along all those best management practices. And this is what it really is. This is what, with the revenues that we have available to us, this is what we can do and still provide a reasonable level of services to the folks. Beyond this, we want to improve the way any particular department in town is functioning and meet needs that aren't being met at this point in time. You're going to have to look for another source of funds. So,
And part of this developed basically where we're, we've got to show some fiscal responsibility at some point. Now, we do have money in free cash. You listed, Steve, in your report. We probably could take free cash this year and cover those costs that we'd like to cover. But that builds into the structural deficit for next year. And at some point, next year is probably going to be that point, because this year we've got an abundance of free cash that we knew we were going to get for particular practices. I'm not sure that we could do that. You've listed the Turner backs this year, and we do have the health insurance one-time deal.
Yep.
So, and we've got the overlay that we're able to use. So we're on some good, sound fiscal management practices, but we still haven't been able to deal with the structural deficit in the operating budget.
Correct.
And at some point, unless we deal with it, the best sound fiscal management practices aren't going to work, because there's no savings account left to cover that for operations, and that's kind of generalizing, but that's how we got there.
Well, it should be known that we always go super conservative to have over 100,000 extra every year. So, some lines might have to be looked at a little different.
Well, the turnbacks for the town were around $200,000. Now, you can look at it from that perspective and reduce the budgets to make the $200,000 fit. But it's a negative effect against your free cash for next year. And the same thing with your estimated receipts. You can increase those, but that's not a good practice to do, because you're cutting your nose off to spite your face, because you need that supplement of funds to meet those one-time things that happen to you. So if you appropriated everything, you'd have nothing left to start the next year with.
Yeah, I wouldn't say we're going to
No, no,
spend $750,000, but I would say I want to save firefighters. So we'll be talking about it down the line,
Oh, that's choice the board makes.
obviously, yep.
Choice the board makes, it's in your hands.
And again, the two firefighting positions that we're talking about came under a grant. This board voted based on just grants availability, with a notice to the fire chief and the people that were hired. These jobs are dependent upon the grants being available. So, and certainly they're valuable people to have. And you're right, we have to make determinations of what we're going to do in terms of dollars. But again, the tendency we've had in the last few years is to build up the structural deficit. Now, we can ignore it, and we can still raid the cookie jar when there's a cookie left, but there's only one left pretty much in that cookie jar now. So we got to decide what we're
I
going
don't
to do.
think it's ignoring it all, but the reason we went for the grant is because we didn't hire a firefighter. We took it out of the budget, and he went to the state or fed, I don't remember where the grant came from, to replace it. Because we couldn't rehire a firefighter. I want to make that clear. This wasn't extra on top of firefighters. It's to replace what we couldn't afford to put on.
But also,
Without doing.
Well, I think what we need to address is that, we can't provide the same kinds of services we've been accustomed to in the last 10 years with the budget and the operation monies that we have for that budget going forward. It's as simple as that. Now, as a town, if we want to have those same kinds of services, we have to come up with other revenue sources or an override or something. We can't do it with basically taking money from free cash or stabilization or an overlay, because that's just moving monies around that are going to come back to bite you tenfold. And that's kind of what we're getting to at this point as a town. There are towns that do that, and there are towns that do that have gone bankrupt. So, I mean, that's an option. I'd rather not go that option. In the last few years, we've started practicing some fiscal management, except for the operation side of the budget. The operation side of the budget has had a structural deficit. We either, at some point, say we're going to start addressing that, or we're going to have to look down the road of what does this mean in the next 12 months when we look at next year's operational budget, because we're not going to have the luxury of free cash in that time period.
because there's two sides, and you have to make it sustainable. The revenue sustainable. I can't, you got the operation side every day, but you got also the capital side. And once you start ignoring your infrastructure, and a lot of towns have done that, and now they've got a substantial expense to try to recover, and they just can't do it. You get in a situation that puts you in a real bad situation. So,
Just so what you got here, we're already at least $125,000 in the hole just on snow and ice. You only get 70 every year. We're averaging close to 200,000. So right off the bat, we're still
And that's why I'm telling you, hold back
Oh, yeah.
some of that free cash, not to spend it.
Yes, that's
There'll be a real temptation, but don't forget, you know, when you start using the free cash, you got $500,000. So much, 54% school, 46% town. So when you're looking at, you know, $200,000 for the town, it's not much to play around with, and you can't deal from a position of strength in that area. So you're gonna build that revenue, it's gonna support what you wanna have for operations for a town.
You need to share this with the schools so they can see where we're at this point.
It was all part of our, we have a meeting with Ms. Dagon and Mr. Dupree, the new business manager. I think it's the second or third of, the second. I have a meeting with them to go over the revenue stuff that we have here and with the budget, so.
I mean, even here, there's some assumptions of how much of the available funds going forward that will be divided up on the school side and the town side, and the schools could argue that's not even going close to what they need, and they use that argument, and it's a fair argument.
Yeah.
The problem is, where does the money come from if we do that?
I don't dispute that argument. I mean, it's just,
Yeah.
it's what it is. I mean, you know, we've gone without raises and stuff here for our people and not done anything. And a lot of the increases in our budget is due to that fact. But, you know, I'm not getting to who did what and things like that. We are where we are today, and we need to get together to solve the problem, not divide and go in separate directions. It won't serve any purpose.
No, all set. Any other comments? The board comfortable with meeting with any departments next meeting that would like to meet with us in regards to their own budgets? So why don't we get the word out and let them know that? I'd like to try to wrap this up over the next couple of meetings, if we could, Jack and Steve, at least on the town side, so people are aware, you know, and if things change, if something should happen at the state level down the road, we could certainly revisit some of the other priorities that people would have in terms of their budgets. You know.
Absolutely.
All right, next, Jack, you've got a proposal for professional engineering and some comments on the water treatment.
Yes. Can I take them in reverse order?
Sure can. Yeah, go ahead. That'll make us pretty close to being on schedule because we're around close to 6:45.
Okay. Tony Vieira and I, Tony, it's...
A couple of weeks ago,
Couple
Jack.
weeks
Jack's been
ago.
on vacation for the last couple of weeks, folks. That's why he has a tan, kind of laid back, relaxed, you know, down in Florida, just returned, first day back to work.
They plan to change the smile on my face very quickly, I've been told. Anyway, we went with our engineers, environmental partners, Ryan Trahan and Steve Olson, to meet with Terry Sullivan, who heads up the water and sewer functions for the city. We met with he and his right-hand man, Mr. Fryer, and Don Bunker, who's the city's consulting engineer. We talked about what the city was doing to try to improve on their process of their treatment of their water, which comes to us, so that perhaps we wouldn't have to spend $800,000 on a treatment plant to deal with what they call trihalomethanes. They're disinfection byproducts that are created as a result of the city using chlorine to disinfect the water. We talked about a number of different alternatives. We found out that the city had recently changed their process and is not using as much chlorine, is not doing pre-chlorination of their water. And the facility began using a pre-filtered chlorination instead of pre-chlorination at the beginning of the system just recently. That change could result in less disinfection byproducts in the water that's coming to the town. We also have reached an agreement that would be consummated in the next couple of weeks with regard to credits for the water we use to flush the system and bleed off at the end of the line in order to keep the water moving through our system. We're under orders from DEP to do that. Up to this point, the city has been charging us for that water use, that wasted water, if you will. But it's necessary because these disinfection byproducts are created when the chlorine residuals meet organics in the water system as the water sits in the pipe. We use about 1/3 of the capacity of the pipe system a day. So that means that it takes 3 days to use up everything that's in the pipe system. It's not moving fast enough, and because of that, those residuals, chlorine residuals, are meeting up and getting together with organics in the water and forming the trihalomethanes. We have a standard that we have to reach in terms of the level of those trihalomethanes, and we're hoping that we can get a little reprieve in terms of having to spend money to build a treatment system while we explore other possibilities, such as doing more flushing now that we're not going to be charged for that water, more bleeding of the water off in several different locations. Our engineers are going to be meeting with our plant operator, our system operator, Linda Correa, on Wednesday, and taking a look at the system and trying to find the optimal places to put in bleeder pipes to basically waste water and move water through the line faster. We will be sending a letter to environmental partners, through our environmental partners, to the state DEP, perhaps later this week, if not next week, and asking them to delay the implementation of the design and construction of the system they have ordered us to build until we can see what the effects of the new procedures that the city is using, which is a reduction in chlorine use and hopefully a reduction in chlorine residuals, and the wasting of the water through the flushing and bleeding in order to move the water faster through the system so that the THMs don't form in our water. We're very hopeful, based on contacts with staff at DEP, that we'll be able to get their approval to delay action with going forward with the construction. They may, however, require us to spend the money to design the system so it's shovel-ready if other less costly alternatives are not able to be developed. Which brings me to the second item that's on the agenda, and that is the proposed professional services contract with environmental partners. If the board would turn to that now and look on the next to the last page. This document outlines, environmental partners outlines the services that they would be providing in order to be our on-call engineers for developing some options here, and also to work with us and with the city of Fall River to try and develop some less costly solutions. And finally, also to begin the process and carry out the development of a design of the new treatment system, should it be required. I think I've told the board this before, but I'll say it again for those who might not have heard this story before. But my worst fear in this process is that the state will require us to build an $800,000 system that's gonna cost us a good half, 50,000, 54,000 or thereabouts to operate every year. And then, down the road a few years, they may change their directions to the city and require the city to change their disinfection system and the type of disinfection to say ozone, which would mean that they weren't using chlorine any longer and therefore weren't generating the trihallomethanes. And we would be stuck with a 20-year bond issue still to repay and no longer need to use the system. That's not an acceptable resolution of this problem. And we need to find a way to solve it in a less costly manner and get some help from the state, hopefully, in terms of their committing to help us with that. So that's the worst scenario that could develop from all of this, is that we spend all that money and then find out that the city's been required to do something that negates the need for that system entirely. So my request to the board is that the board authorize me to work with Steve. We have a standard form contract that's been approved by town council, and the request is that the board authorize us to develop this document, this proposal for engineering services, into a engineering contract to be presented to you at your next meeting for action.
What is the source of funding?
The
Short-term borrowing?
Yeah, short-term borrowing. We've been authorized to borrow $864,000. The engineering costs, and you see on the page I referenced, page 7, task 1 is on-call engineering services, $10,000 estimate. Task 2 is the project design, coordination, and management, $8,000. Task 3, preliminary design, $18,000. Task 4, design development, $13,500. Task 5, final design, $26,500. And task 6, permitting, $8,000. And this would take us through to completion of the design, and hopefully we won't have to get to the point of building this thing.
I think Jack did a great job at explaining this, too. It's been an ongoing, month after month dealing with the city on this, and the city has been extremely cooperative with us,
Yeah.
and cooperating in all kinds of ways. Most recently, this bleeding was discussed, and when Jack mentioned we have a capacity of 3 days in the Westport side, typically most cities and towns would have about 5 to 7 days sitting in the line. The problem is the water sits in Fall River because they have a tremendous capacity, the old mills over there. So it's compounded because of the capacity Fall River has and the lack of use in Fall River as well. So by the time it gets to us, it's already been sitting in pipes before it got to Westport for, in some cases, 5 to 7 days. So it's a combination of the two. But this bleeding may help us, and they're going to allow us to bleed right back into, bleeding is running a faucet 24 hours a day. I mean, Steve's our plumber on board here, so he can speak to some of the particulars, but what it amounts to is that, we're going to be running a faucet 24 hours a day. The city's doing that in many areas of the city right now. They have problems in the airport area and some other outlying areas of the city. So they're working with us in that same kind of situation where they'll accept it. They won't charge us for the bleeding, separate from the flushing. Now, the bleeding won't be in charge. And we're going to go to DP, if the board so gives us that charge, to try to see if we can delay the implementation of the court order, basically to install the water treatment center. It may be that they'll tell us that we have to do the design. We're hearing that as probably the compromise in their part, but we won't know until we get there. But we do have authorization from town meeting. We don't take that lightly, though, and we're trying to see if we can really stop the process, slow down the process, see what happens with the EPA and the city of Fall River over the next 12 months, and see if we can buy some time, correct the problem that way. I don't know if it will or not, you might know better in terms of your experience on water.
No, I just think, yeah, I mean, we think we should go to DEP, tell them the situation.
So why do I put that in the form of a motion that we accept the consultant's recommendations, that we meet with DEP, provide an update in terms of how we are planning to flush the system and seek a continuation in the enforcement, effective date of enforcement for this order.
Second.
Any other discussion on that? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, it's unanimous. Steve, I would ask on the back page where they talk about their rates, their hourly rates, that came up with the Water Resource Management Committee. One of the concerns, sort of like an attorney giving you rates, and, they try to do the highest billable hours. So we're concerned in terms of trying to keep a cap on that, because you get the principal price of $199 and a field technician of $70. So we hope we can use a lot of field technicians, and we don't need the principal all the time on this, so.
Yeah, well, we got project manager, and, senior project manager. So I think we're talking about the 150 and the 189.
We probably are, but there may be some times, like if we're gonna be putting in, again, Steve, we're gonna have to connect, to put a faucet in to dump into the South Ward Tupper. Some of the connections there, we're using it in here. You can probably, I don't know, maybe get away with a $95.
No, I mean, that's what I took as Jack's gonna work out
Yeah.
hours and,
Right.
On site.
Is the board in agreement that we prepare a contract?
Yeah, I'll make a second motion to that effect. Authorize the town administrator to develop a contract and what's the name of the organization again?
Environmental fund.
Environmental Partners, and bring it to us at our next meeting.
Second.
Questions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well, it's unanimous. Thank you. Good job, Jack.
Thank you.
Next thing was a beginning of a discussion. Steve had asked if we consider this in the future, and I included in the packets some information on was a 1909 report on the cemetery. Excuse me, did I say 1909?
Yeah.
2008, 2009. A
few hundred years.
Among friends, But there was a cemetery task force. Some of the people on that task force felt that the board really didn't take a look at this, and before we go too far, we should at least review what was given to us earlier. But there has been a number of emails, I'm sure other folks have received them as well. The superintendent for the cemetery was on vacation last week. He came back today. I wasn't able to chat with him, but we probably all received those emails in terms of, I guess they're trying to expand the areas that have been approved for cemetery use, and they've cut down a couple of trees, and they're trying to get that cemetery section ready, and that's caused some concerns, and I just wanted to bring it before the board. Steve had asked to have it on the agenda.
Yeah, we need to
so-
stay on top of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any comments or thoughts on it at this
I
point?
did have a chance to talk to the gentleman and explain to him that there were at least two letters received complaining about their,
Oh, it's up to about 5 or 6.
oh, is it?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Anyway, he's aware that there are people that have registered their complaint that the trees are being cut, but there's a need to use the existing, he says there's probably 20 to 30 years worth of space left in the cemetery proper, now that the 8 acres, I guess it was, that were taken for the fire station are no longer part of the cemetery property. That might, with those 8 acres, it might have lasted another 90 years, he said. But right now, he estimates 20 to 30 years. So there's a need to begin the process of preparing that area for burials at that time. And it takes a long time to prepare an area of a cemetery, because you not only have to remove the trees and the roots, you have to basically dig down 5 feet minimum and remove all of the rocks, and then put the soil back and let it settle over a period of years. So it's it's time to begin that process. And unfortunately, that's the area that's left.
If you look at the task force that was put together before, Bob McCarthy from the Finance Committee chaired that, and I know when I was on the Finance Committee, he would speak to that on a number of occasions, and it's a pretty detailed report. It's a good summary, and there's a lot of data in there, and it talks about current conditions and availability, and some projections that were made by the task force, and some comparisons for that, some budget issues as well. So I think that we do have something. I mean, we certainly can establish another task force, but I don't think things have changed. They might have changed since 1908, but I think in 2008, 2009, we're pretty close to the same situation here. So I would say that maybe over the next few weeks, we ought to take a look at this and chat as the board here. We'll get on the agenda again and talk about next steps. I think in fairness to Wes, though, we should get Wes' input before we go too far with this. I do know that Wes does have plans to put up a wall around the cemetery. He has the most of the rocks there, just a question of the cost of putting up the wall. In terms of the trees, I'm sure that there has been some that have been cut down, but even if we get a new site, I think we're going to have to deal with that issue in terms of going to clear land. Those things are still going to be factors. So, but at least for now, that's where we stand with it. If you would take a look at the document, and maybe Diane, we could put it on sometime in the January agendas, maybe, and address this issue.
Just the back table, I think. I gotta step out for the next one.
Okay. Next, we have appointments. The first one, Chief's not going to be with us this evening. Jack, and you were going to take the lead on
Yes,
this one.
the chief had a family matter to attend to and asked that I stand in his place on this matter. There's an open emergency medical dispatcher position, and I'll just read Chief Pelletier's letter to the chairman. The police department's communications section currently has an open EMD 911 dispatcher position. This opening is a direct result of a resignation. The position is considered full-time and is covered under the LAW Local 254 contract with the town. The vacancy was properly posted by Denise Bouchard for members of LAW Local 254. No member of the union body has shown any interest in the position prior to the deadline. It was also posted on the town's website and local newspaper. We received 7 applications, one of which, Kylie Ouellette, is a current reserve officer who possesses all of the necessary training requirements. Kylie possesses a bachelor's degree in criminal justice and has voluntarily completed APCO, LEAPS, and CJIS, emergency medical dispatch, and logged hundreds of hours in the dispatch center. Therefore, I, the Chief Pelletier, asked the Board of Selectmen to appoint Kylie E. Ouellette of 25 Maple Street, Westport, Mass. To the position of full-time 911 emergency medical dispatcher.
I move we accept the chief's recommendation.
Second.
Motion and second on the floor, and Selectman Ouellette step away from the table and out of the room because he happens to be related to Kylie, and he should be proud of that, and I'm sure he is. But I would say that unless there's further questions, I would call the question. Any comments?
No.
Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, and Kylie, welcome aboard, and we're pleased to have you in this position. Keep up the good work. Why don't you see if you can find your dad? Tell him we got more business, though.
There he is.
Why don't you congratulate your daughter?
Honey, very good. We're proud to have you.
Unless you pay rent.
Good kid. Native, too. There you go.
There you go. Very instrumental when we celebrated our anniversary at Westport as well. Kylie was right there and continues to work in law enforcement for our community. Thank you very much.
You and her mother did a great job with your anniversary.
Okay, next we have a request from Christine. I see Christine, please come down. Council on Aging Director for appointment of the principal clerk. Take a seat and use the mic, Christine.
Good evening. Yes, I have a request to have Eileen McCarthy Mendonca appointed as the principal clerk for the Council on Aging.
Okay.
We had 30 applicants and interviewed 6 of the applicants, and Eileen really was a shining star. She has approximately 14 years of experience working as an administrative assistant. The last 5 years, she's been working as the executive secretary to the principal of the middle school. So she comes highly qualified.
Did you bring it with you tonight?
I did.
Would you want to come forward?
Please, come on down. Welcome.
Hi.
Anybody have any questions for Eileen?
No, this is only a replacement, so it doesn't affect this new budget that's coming.
Right.
So that would take care of that. And like we always ask anybody else is, you know, you said she was the best qualified, and that's what we want, but there was no Westport resident that met the qualifications.
I move we accept Director's recommendation to appoint Eileen McCarthy Mendonca to the position of Principal Clerk for the Council on Aging.
Second.
I have a motion and second. Jack, any comments?
No,
Is there
no,
a HR
not at all.
coordinator?
Welcome aboard.
Any other? No. Good. Okay, call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Welcome aboard. Yeah. Good luck. Yeah. Good seeing you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
you. Love you, Dora.
Nice job with Veterans Day, too. Great job down there. Yeah, appreciate it.
You're right.
Okay, I think, Steve, you're on for the next one, right? On
Yes.
the roofing for the police station. This is action item number 1.
I'm requesting the board approve the agreement with Bro Roofing to do emergency repairs to the police station roof. It's been leaking for some time, and we need to make these repairs as quickly as we can in order to mitigate that leaking problem.
Can we get it done by tomorrow night?
I'm trying. And this was a prevailing wage rate, so it took some time to do it. We received two bids, and this is the low bid, and matter of fact, recommended that you approve this contract with that roofing company.
Funding?
There was $50,000 appropriated for the roof, to study the roof and roof presentation by an engineer, how we can improve, but we need to do the emergency repairs before we do anything.
Okay.
So this will mitigate that for the time being.
So this is removal of the metal cap, flashing on the top of the walls, install a new metal edge, removal of old flashing and roof drains, flash drains, new rubber, install a seal on the fans, and it's prevailing wage.
Yes,
And the money is in the account.
yes.
Move we accept Steve Lombard's recommendation and enter into contract for this amount with Brolt Roofing.
Second.
Motion and second. Any other questions on this? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. It's unanimous. Next is approve amendment to existing agreement, bread and cheese Brook project. Is this you, Jack? Is that?
Yes.
Oh, it looks, might have been Steve. It looks like you did that, Steve, for the,
I sent a memo originally to that.
okay.
I worked today with Roland.
Yeah, we're probably not ready for the approval of this tonight.
I don't
Maybe
think
we
so
do- yeah, Why don't
either.
we do the water?
I think I need to take it to the Water Resource Management Committee.
Yep. And then
I'll
bring
do
it back.
that. They got a meeting coming up first part of December, right?
But we should be all set. I mean, this
Yeah.
is, it's routine. The money's there. We already have a vote at
Right.
town meeting.
That's
It's not gonna
right.
delay anything.
Yeah.
But I think Jack just came back today, and the material that you received from UMass on this project needs to verify the first year, and that's what he's doing right now.
Yeah.
So next meeting?
Yeah.
Motion to table.
I did get that additional information from Roland, what's his last name? Sememi?
Yeah.
And he did send that forward, and I think it would be appropriate to share it with the Water Resource Management Committee and have them forward it back to the board for action.
Okay. Next action item, discussion on video demand. Well, that was actually, at the last meeting I mentioned, Steve was going to Cushionit and they were doing the video on demand. So I think the other Steve is going to have a meeting.
Yeah, we have a meeting
Yeah.
next Tuesday, 6 PM. You got the thing, right?
Anything you
6
want?
PM at the high school media center.
Now, I'm trying to get, we spoke about it.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to get information from Tightrope Media System, which handles Kushnet's video on demand. I really don't have any information for you this evening, other than,
If you go to the website of the towns that have that, and just click on their deal, it's pretty much the way you would do on demand for anything else, and they can just click it on it and watch the show that they're interested in. Now, the schools have it presently, but they have it on their computer, so.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this would be on, you know, and some of the elderly folks that mentioned, you know, I suggest, well, they could go to the computer, and they inform me that that's not an option. They would like
Yeah.
to see it on their cable TV and charter, because they have charter.
well, the thing is, Valerie's been experimenting with putting the selectmen's meetings up on YouTube.
Yep.
As a process. So she's currently done that for 3 or 4 meetings, right? 3 meetings. It's up there, so she'll give you the link so you can look at it. But we're also looking at the other area.
The next item on the agenda, discuss cable production options and the charge for the Cable Advisory Board. Steve, you're meeting next week, and one of the things that I think we probably should talk about the board is, the board was in the negotiations for the cable contract, and now it's more of an ongoing, you know, what do we have the committee for? And I'm assuming what you're doing is kind of the day-to-day operations a little bit.
Yeah, remember we thought about getting rid of it, and then we as a board decided to keep it for any kind of cable input. That's the point we're at.
Okay.
It's just to save the board a little legwork and do the research and stuff,
Yep, yep.
so, and then, you know.
I have to say, again, and I'm sure you folks are getting the same emails here. The last town meeting was a problem at the beginning of the town meeting. Sound has been a problem constantly anyways. Sometimes we're guilty of that because we're not close to a mic, and others, there are technical issues associated with it. And I think that one of the things that we do have, I mean, Steve Lombard, some meetings ago, suggested how we could change this office around to accommodate a higher quality production. So there are some funds available through the cable contract that's set aside for this purpose. So that's, we're looking for the
Yeah,
guidance.
that's on the
to see how we
agenda.
can-
Live meetings on the agenda, school broadcasts on the agenda, video on demand on the agenda, and,
I would
one other
ask,
thing.
I would ask that you look at the schools and utilizing people at the schools if we could.
Yeah,
The
no, it's on
person who
there.
runs the Durfee High School lives in town, and the Durfee High School media person has volunteered to show what they do in Durfee. I don't know if that's a model that will work for us, but it might help, you know.
Yeah.
get
I've
other
also,
folks
Steve,
take-
I dug up the proposal that was approved some time ago, earlier this past year, I guess. And I've asked Nicole in the accounting office, through Terry, of course, to go over it and find out how much of this has been done, what's been purchased along these lines, how much of this money was spent, and what wasn't. And so I'll have a report for you next week on that.
If anybody has, just a reminder to the board, if anybody has any input, I need it by Wednesday, don't forget the holidays this week.
Yeah.
So I could have it posted as soon as possible. Matter of fact, Diane, we already needed to be posted because of 4 business days,
You're
right?
already posted,
Does Friday count as a business day for us, in case I have to modify?
Yes.
All right, so.
but we
I
won't
need to
be
know.
here.
Nobody will be here, but
I know, but I mean, if we post something tomorrow, it counts as a business day Friday that it was out there for the public, correct?
Right.
Because it can go on the board by the elevator so the public can see it.
Well, he has to post the agenda too.
So the agenda's posted, Diane posted it for me because this week's so messed up, but if anybody wants to add anything that the public should know about, let me know as soon as possible, so I can modify.
I'll try and get you that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, and I think I got it pretty well covered.
Val, did
If
you
I
have
can
a
ask
question?
what proposal that was?
That was the school proposal with.
This was the one that we worked on, Valerie, with Keith and with Elizabeth Lewis, remember?
Yeah, we
wanna
have to
approve that?
review, we probably have to review that, because a lot of technology has changed since we went over that.
Exactly, yeah. Okay?
And
So
I
we'll
don't know
get you an
what's been
update.
spent, or, you know, what,
Right.
what's
We'll get
been
it.
purchased.
I'll get an update from you
I think it's
tomorrow.
just, Val, I think it's just healthy to sit down, talk to the group, you get some feedback from some of the folks that are on the committee, and just see how we can improve the system. I mean, we're always about improving. I think from the standpoint of the feature of on-demand, if that's doable, that might be a feature that would really help a lot in our system, because we're somewhat dated in some of the stuff we're showing, and that would allow folks that, you know, if they want to see a particular meeting, if I see the Disabilities Committee in the back of the room, if they want to see the Disabilities last meeting, they could just go on demand and call it up and look at it.
Yeah, well, there's different proposals, there's
Yep.
different ways of doing it.
Yep.
You know, I know Acushnet's been doing it for quite some time, and
Yeah, it might be a
quite a few towns have actually gone out and they just job it out, they hire a private company to come in and provide that service.
Well,
And, you know,
Yeah.
that's another option, but I'd like to see if we could do something with the schools and get students involved and do some training for there'd be some benefits.
Yeah, and as you know, there was a change in leadership at the school, so there was a little hiccup for our meeting
Yep.
put it off a few
No
weeks.
problem.
Just so the board knows.
Okay, next, approval of the Public Safety Officer's recommendation, the head of Westport area. Did Craig and Steve, did you get down there at all?
Yeah, we got a letter in here from the neighborhood.
We're there.
And I don't know, I didn't know if you wanted to address it tonight, because Lieutenant Bell couldn't be here, but
Well,
I know we got it.
we were ready last time to approve the Public Safety Officer's recommendations on the traffic side. There are other things that are going to be probably over the next 4 or 5 months. Landing Commission has to talk about it as it relates to the Landing
Right.
Commission,
Yep.
that kind of stuff. So
The
I'd like to at
right-of-way.
least move the public safety piece if we could, because I'd like to slow down traffic down here. That was glaring in the report.
Yep.
And I don't think there's any agreement with anybody that I've spoke to down there, unless you folks met other opposition. Everybody seemed to be very supportive of the public safety part of it. And even to the point where, I think the email we received today, the neighbors were volunteering to get the 2 signs
signs.
to identified speed.
Well, that's the critical part that I don't think's on the thing now, but, yeah, I mean, I was gonna push for the stop sign at least on, we talked about
Reed Road,
that,
yes.
on Reed Road. I mean, that's,
Well, there's a whole list, and the idea of having the signs, we're on there, because Lieutenant Bell talked to us a couple of months ago about that. The funding, and I told him I'd talk to the businesses.
Right.
The email today was the residents said they coordinated, it's like $4,100,
Yeah.
a little over 2,000 a sign. And that's the same thing that we have in the
Yeah.
village, those
Yeah, right.
solar signs
Yeah.
that, you know, track you, and they're willing to do that, and so I'd like to entertain a motion to at least start the portion of Lieutenant Bell's for public safety. We'll revisit this with the Landing Commission, I think they were down here today.
Yeah, I think maybe we move to accept Lieutenant Bell's recommendation as as an initial step towards
Right.
dealing with the safety and right-of-way issues in the head.
second.
Any questions, comments?
No, and one of the issues that he's replacing all the signs, a lot of the signs, they're outdated signs. He's doing
Faded.
putting pre-signs, so all the stuff he's doing here, it's, how can I say, it's really not doing a lot of construction that say, okay, well, maybe we don't like it, you wanna change it. It's only be moving a sign, so definitely we want, you know, let's go along with all the stuff here, and we always can tweak it as it goes along, so I support this 100%.
Good. Any other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor? Chair votes aye, it's unanimous. Good.
We also asked them to talk to you guys, because the street light out down there is making a negative effect too. The cars are flying through there. So whatever you can do with that.
What kind of drift in Old County?
Yeah, you know what, I'd like to, if we can, before we,
LED.
yeah, can we see if we can call, it's NSTAR or Verizon, I don't know who has that.
Oh, yeah, good luck with them.
Oh, yeah, I know, well, yeah, you burned the bridge there.
That's right.
I'd like to see if they're gonna replace that bulb and all that, if we can, let's start replacing a light with an LED. The light is so much better, it's, Dartmouth did all their stuff, they're so bright, and especially, you know, we're not for shutting lights, especially at intersections, and that's a major intersection.
Yeah, it
I'd like
is.
to see if we can get an LED light there versus replacing this one,
Well, that's what we mentioned, maybe Energy Committee can get us a price on that,
price or something like that.
see what we can do.
Who can we talk to, Jeff, anybody we can talk to?
Yeah, I could follow up on that. I'll follow up on it with
Because
them.
I think they use the same brackets and everything, it's just the head that they changed. So and maybe we could do that, what we can maybe go, as lights go out or something breaks, replace them slowly, show it all LEDs. It's more
I'll
cost.
call Charlie Tavaz, because I think he's reflected
Right.
some numbers on LED lights to us
Yeah.
Well, there was
before.
a grant, but I don't know if it's still out there. I don't know if
I'll
somebody
call
could
him.
ask Dartmouth.
Yeah.
Energy Committee had a subcommittee on solar this afternoon, they were talking, so they were here, so
Yeah.
I haven't had a chance to follow up with them.
I talked just briefly with the chairman.
Good.
It was a good meeting.
Yeah.
And he's got some things got to grow out of that.
Yeah.
Well, I know it's not on the agenda, but we just ask You said that they met today with the energy committee, dealing with solar. How was the?
Oh, it wasn't Dartmouth. They were looking
How's,
at
I was saying,
other-
how's the landfill moving around for us?
Every time we contact, or the state senator or the state rep contacts them, they say that we're in the hopper there, but Dartmouth is ahead of us, and they're waiting.
Okay.
Just standard reply.
Yeah, we just looked at another option. This is Blue Wave meeting was in today?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. Yep. Okay, next was, we put this on from a couple of weeks ago. The Affordable Housing met today. They had a very good meeting, Craig, with the...
Unfortunately, I was missing, but
Yeah, I wish they had taped it, because I think it would have solved a lot of problems for the public on
Yeah.
questions that were coming up. But TCB folks were there, and they addressed some of those. The Board of Health met with members of the board, I guess last Monday now, I'm losing the dates, but there was some concern with the Board of Health, and I think the Affordable Housing Trust trying to address those concerns. But I don't know, you and Brian had asked to have a meeting with us. I don't know the timing of it, or...
Well, my understanding I did talk to the chairman of the Affordable Housing Trust before tonight's meeting, and my understanding was, and Elaine is here, that they had set aside time on the 11th of December at 2 o'clock in the afternoon to have a meeting with this board. So if that's something, I do know that, again, if I'm understanding, a lot of questions were answered. I know you were in attendance this afternoon. But I think for other members of the board, it might be helpful to have a meeting with Affordable Housing Trust as well.
And when's that meeting?
It'll be December 11th at 2 p.m.
Well, I don't know how many, can you make a 2 PM meeting?
I'll have to check it, see if anybody's out.
You know,
I'll probably working.
I think, I mean, I'm retired, so I can make a meeting in the middle of the day, but I'm not sure how many people can. You can't make a 2 o'clock meeting, can you?
And on that day, I can.
Oh,
But-
well, let's see. I mean, if we can accommodate them, why don't you folks check and see if you can. If not, we'll try to come up with another date. You said Tuesday?
Is that a Tuesday?
Tuesday, yes.
All right, we might have another meeting that day, too. Security.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else on that? Oh, sure. Elaine?
We had a little discussion, and the hope was that the two chairs could get together on the phone and sort of shape the agenda for a joint meeting, whatever the questions should be there.
Well, I'd rather not do that. I think that if any member of the Board of Selectmen have a question, they should be able to
Oh, that's
ask
fine,
it, you know.
absolutely, yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
we need to keep communication going, and it's, the Affordable Housing Committee, they're trying to do a good job, and I can understand where sometimes questions come up and they get a little bit concerned, but it's, they're doing a good job, and I think everybody respects that. We've said as a board, we want to support affordable housing in our community, so,
Okay.
let's try to see if we can just get a meeting and sit down and raise those questions. What you
Okay,
did today with your committee and with TCB, the only negative I would have is it wasn't televised. If it was, I think that would have solved a
Yeah,
lot of problems
yeah.
right then and there, quite
Okay,
frankly.
thank you.
Yep. Okay, next is a discussion of bylaw for an annual town meeting regarding temporary moratorium in order to study the zoning issues related to the medical marijuana dispensaries. We received some material in our packets, and there's been a lot of discussion in area towns on that. Steve, I think you had
Yeah,
some
I asked
comments on this
if
question.
Jack could get an update for us, because now they said there's only one license needed in the county, and there's 7 waiting. Is this something that's critical for us? or-
Yeah. I don't know, I haven't got an answer to your question yet. I reached out to Serpent, but, on that and one other thing, but there was a letter from the chairman of the planning board.
Yeah,
Have you
he's
seen
working
that?
on it,
I think you have that in your packet. Tonight,
Oh, it's in here? Yeah, I got it someplace.
yeah. Second.
Oh, it's in tonight's packet.
tonight, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
see it tonight.
You need it, Tony?
No, I got it here someplace. Just gotta find the right file.
That's the earliest.
There you go.
Well, they talk about the planning board is in the process of developing a zoning bylaw allowing, where they could cite these centers. My concern is that you know, the state decides they're gonna have this, and then everybody, 351 cities and towns, you know, go out and spend a lot of money on attorney fees, and everybody reinvents the wheel, and then, you know, you only get 5 that you're gonna have in a county anyways, and it seems like we're creating an awful lot of energy on planning boards and attorneys for something that probably is not gonna happen in a lot of communities, based on the direction that the state's giving anyways. It seems to be a tremendous waste of money going through this process. And I don't understand why we do this all the time.
I don't know what process the state is going through to approve these, but apparently some have been made an initial cut in terms of applications, right? It's beginning to sound a lot like the casino process.
Exactly.
Or strip clubs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, those are 2 good examples.
Yeah.
Yeah, where, you know, cities and towns have spent, I mean, the only people that benefit from this are the attorneys that are, you know, representing both sides and, you know, meeting after meeting, month after month, and years after years, and
Yeah.
nothing comes of it anyways.
I think one of the main things on this is the cultivation, the growing is limited in the Commonwealth. There's so many in each county, but the distribution centers, I think that's probably a little bit more.
Well, the moratorium that's in place as a result of town meeting vote is in place until the end of June of the end of next June. So maybe they'll have already picked the 5 in Bristol County by next June. You won't have to worry about it.
Well, I hope so, because we are worrying about the legal bills associated with it, the time that the planning board spends on this and not spending on other things that they have a tight schedule on trying to address for town meeting.
I don't know that council is working on anything
Planning board?
right now.
Or the town council? Well, they're gonna have to be, if they're gonna draft bylaws.
Okay. Yeah, but I'm not aware of whether, can I ask of the planning board member present?
Sure.
2.
2 planning board members.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We were really looking for a template to work with, try to minimize this,
Yep.
because there's a downside. Because if we don't have a bylaw in place, somebody can come in and by right establish themselves. That's what the state law says. If there's not, you know, a
That's what we
bylaw.
should do jointly between the planning board and the selectmen, is send a letter to our senator and our rep asking us that this is just, this downside that's suggested doesn't make a whole lot of sense based on the regulations that they're saying where there's 5. You have to get in the planning stage, you have so many to choose from now. It sounds like even if we went through this, that the first round for the next 24 months, we wouldn't be involved in anyways. Maybe we could just delay it for 24 months based on their own guidelines and regulations. When this came out initially, I think one of the confusing parts is that we bought the time because they didn't have the guidelines. Now they have the guidelines, and the guidelines spell out some of this stuff, you know.
That could be regional now, where they said we couldn't do it before, so.
And I think,
I mean, I would entertain a motion that we send a letter to our state rep and ask for some clarification on this before we, you know, I mean, it's up to, I don't know how the planning board feels on it, but maybe give them an opportunity to weigh in on it and see, but I don't, do you see this as a time-consuming piece for the planning board at all, or costly at all? If not, we just go forward with it.
yeah, one of the issues I've been reading is there's 2 things, the centers with dispensaries and also the cultivation. And you find one of the cultivation, they're kind of looking, some of the cities have big old mills, they're already structures in there, they can go inside there, put 100 some odd people and make it and grow it inside. And that's one thing. And then the distribution centers, that's another thing, where those, I think, you probably have more of an issue than you would at the major the growing centers.
Well,
So, but I think if Copeland and Page, they say they represent 100+ cities and towns in Massachusetts, you're not gonna make 150 different bylaws, so make one, that's it, it's gonna cover everybody, I mean,
I mean, and they did come out early after this passed and gave the model for putting a moratorium in effect that we used for the last town meeting.
I think there's a lot of stuff going forward.
Well, we know that both New Bedford and Fall River have been working on this, and they have signed a contract with the industrial park in Fall River, for one of the largest ones in the country, I guess.
And that's what the
So,
money is.
You know, I don't think
cultivate
that
places.
the state's gonna allow another one in the county so close to the two major cities if they're having one in both cities, so.
Wouldn't make sense unless
No,
we
it doesn't.
wanted it to make a prime product from our town.
Well, I go on record as I don't want it,
No,
but
I-
I'll
I
tell you right
agree.
now, so if we can do anything to stop it, I'd like to stop it.
Would you like a response from the planning,
Sure.
we can bring it up at our next
Yeah,
meeting?
I
to
think
see what
we
we're
take
thi-
the
what
lead
is it-
from the
what is it
planning
gonna-
board.
What is it gonna take?
Yeah, we'll take the lead
I
from the
know
planning
Jim has
board.
been thinking about it and
Sure.
trying to keep it minimal. We'll
Okay.
get back to you.
Okay, thank you. All right, next, there wasn't any question and answers out there. And so, minutes, approval of minutes for October 28th and November 12th.
Gotta take them
Just
separate
a second.
because one
Okay.
member was gone from each one.
I do have an email from Mr. Sullivan. He reviewed both of them, and he has no issues. I have it if you'd like to see it.
Okay, on October 28th, I'll move that we accept the minutes.
I have a motion, I have a second.
I'll be abstaining. I wasn't here.
So it's you.
You were here, right?
Second.
Okay, motion and second, any questions, any revisions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, it's no, it's three.
One abstention.
3-0, one abstention. He was absent. November 12th. That's the one that goes on and on and on. It's like a book.
Yeah, there's one typo right off the bat is, members present is myself, not Craig. You got Craig listed twice, here and absent. So when, in the top list, it should be me, not Craig.
On November 12th?
Yes, to the top.
You have a president absent, that's pretty good.
Yeah, the president absent, that's me that should be
Okay,
there.
so.
That's myself,
I make a motion that we accept the meeting.
with the amendments, second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Oh, abstain. I voted aye.
You were out.
That was,
All right, next is, let's see, Town Administrator report. It's a abbreviated one, but you want to talk a little bit about training, I guess, right?
Yeah, just to give you an overview, I'm already scheduled to begin to do the harassment in the workplace training sessions beginning next week, if I can, get some folks together at that time. But I've also reached out to town council because I believe they have an attorney on staff who specializes in coming out to their communities.
And it's a benefit at no cost to the town.
Correct. So I'm looking into that.
Right. Okay.
For the open meeting law and ethics
Okay.
training.
And they do, they'll do it like towards the late afternoon, so they'll get people who are still working.
Yeah.
They'll stay over and get people who don't work for the town, who are coming in from the city, what have you, and don't have a meeting like 5 o'clock at night, so that's why they'll spend like one afternoon here.
Yeah.
They catch everybody.
Jack County's back.
Steve attended a meeting of the South Coast Town Administrators
Yep.
while I was gone in my stead. And it was a young attorney from KNP, right?
Yep, Michelle Renazzo.
Michelle
Yep.
Rendazzo.
She's been
Yeah,
You know her.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, she's the one who would do it, and again, that's a benefit that we pay for in our.
Yeah, I made a call,
services.
today to David Jenkins.
Now that you're back, we've been getting a lot of questions on the personnel board. We gotta get that, we gotta call that board together. We've had new appointments, and they just haven't,
Yeah.
they haven't had a
Well,
meeting, so.
I think we might have something to meet for as a result of some of your actions tonight.
Yeah, well, just as, I think they should be in the loop on the training pieces as well, you know.
Oh, sure.
Need to be talking about that, and some of the budget issues that we're talking about, they should be aware of, and, you know.
And I think
Steve,
they
did you mention that came up, how many, did you do a survey with personnel boards at the meeting for the town administrators? I mean, most towns still have personnel boards, don't they? Or
A lot of towns don't have
Don't
personnel.
have
Yeah.
Arrangements like we have, they're just gone by the wayside,
Okay.
and getting rid of personnel boards.
So was it personnel boards and cable Sometimes,
cable. Sometimes the town administrator operates the cable system entirely
Yeah.
with other committee.
yeah.
So it is very.
But they have staff, they just, they
Yeah,
don't
they
have
have
the
staff.
committee.
Some have,
related.
and some have elected to use
Yeah.
the commission format where they, basically, it comes off the budget altogether,
Yep.
and the revenues from cable support the costs associated with it, but there's a commission that oversees it.
It's a separate corporation.
Yep.
Right.
As a matter of fact,
Corporation, right.
I think in your boxes, I put a copy of a sample contract that we have in the tri-town where I live,
Okay.
of the
Yep.
cable
Yep.
corporation, where maybe a couple of members of the Board of Selectmen on the Board of Directors, and they're the Board of Directors,
Yep.
and they sign an agreement with the town, enter an agreement to provide those services for local services.
So those folks in those towns that have that, those people are not employees of the town.
That's right.
They don't have any employee benefits or anything like that.
No, they're not employees of the town,
Yeah,
they're,
they're just contractual.
yeah, contractual.
Yeah, Middleborough's also has a separate corporation.
Yeah.
Middleborough and Lakeville, Freetown Lakeville is doing the same thing now.
Well, on the personnel board, we do have one though, and we
Yeah.
appointed those folks a long time ago.
Yeah.
Really need to get them at a meeting and at least go over
Town
stuff.
bylaws.
You know,
Yeah.
bylaw.
Even if they put a meeting together just to bring everybody up to par, show their charges, I think you
Well,
can.
there is a responsibility, as Steve said, it's a bylaw, I mean, unless we change the bylaw, we need to be working with the personnel board, you know.
Yeah.
Wayne, did you have a,
Yeah, I have a question. When I was elected on a write-in vote back in April, I took a conflict of interest course, got a certificate of completion. Now you're telling me, as a member of the planning board, I've got to take additional courses?
You have to take it every 2 years.
2 years.
So I won't have to take it for 2 years?
Right,
I
you have to
already
take it every 2 years.
Yeah, what I say is, I mean, this is an online course I took the
Right.
day after
That's
I got
correct.
elected.
Right,
So I'm good for 2 years?
that's correct.
Okay, I'll resign then.
Put it down, put it on the calendar.
Okay, I got it. All right.
Okay.
okay, next correspondence. We have a request, we've received from Bristol County Mosquito Control Project seeking support for each district's mosquito control budget for FY15. It's in our packets, any
Doesn't
questions
require,
on that?
no, it doesn't require some
No.
funds whatsoever, not even the dollar anymore?
Just to support it, do not support at this point.
I suppose, I'll move it.
It comes through your county assessment.
Yeah, you're paying for it.
You're paying it.
Yeah, I know. I move support.
Second.
Motion and a second, any other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, it's unanimous. Second is a request that was received by David Ankel, doing business as Langkit Salvage,
Yep.
in changing the name to Incorporated. David present?
I think this is just basic paperwork, right?
Okay.
Yeah,
He's
just
got the
paperwork.
Galvin thing and everything.
Yep.
I'll move it.
Second.
Okay, any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Letter was received from Pauline Dooley regarding 10 Cousins Brick Oven Pizza, and parking and minutes.
We have stuff today too, sir.
They got some additional stuff?
From the police department.
Any comments when I'm looking at what we just received?
I think we just, what we're seeing is basically since this entertainment license was granted last May, that there has been no complaints made to the police department, the building department, and planning department. So I'm assuming that all departments were made aware of this, the letter that was received by this board. And I just move we place it on file.
Okay.
At this time, a second. And if anybody does communication with the board, could I ask you to please put your phone number on here too, so we could contact you regarding your concern? We have everything but the phone number.
Yep.
So, that's all. It would help us if we want to follow up with you folks.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to place on file. With the comments.
It'll just stay open if she has more things. We'll follow through. Right now, we got a report that there was no call, so.
As Selectman Dutra said, police department, we just got a correspondence, somebody followed up on this today, I guess, in police department, no complaints, building department is, I'm repeating what I just said, and planning board, to the best of their knowledge, no one has phoned, no letters have been received complaining about noise or parking issues, so. Okay, motion second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, it's unanimous. Next was a request was received by Elaine Ostroff, Chair of the, oh, that's why Elaine's here in the back, okay. Chair of the Commission for Disabilities requesting hiring of a part-time clerk as a recording secretary. Is this is a new position you're requesting, Elaine, and you have budget monies for it? No.
What we proposed in the letter is that we split the cost, most of the money will come from money that the commission has raised, but a portion would come from the $300 we get for supplies. So we would take some of that from the town money.
Elaine, I know you do kind of recording for all kinds of meetings yourself. I recognize that, so please, this isn't personal what I'm saying is, but I thought, Diane, help me with this. Didn't we suggest that didn't we have other requests for recording secretaries recently that we did not approve as a board? We were putting a hold on. You know, I was at 2 meetings earlier today when Elaine was recording on both of them, so I understand, you know, we're asking volunteers to do the recording part of this as well. It's trying to work with budget issues. If this is a small amount that we're asking, I don't even remember what the others were asking for financially, but we have had these requests.
Would the request be different if we paid for it totally ourselves?
That's within your budget, I would say so. I mean, I wish I had
We
more.
pay for it with money that we have raised. That's what I'm referring
But
to.
what I'm saying, what is that money they raise, they go back in the general fund or stays with?
No, it's a gift account.
It's a gift account.
We donated $3,500 to the town to do a mailing on the E911.
Okay,
Good.
I move that we support the creation of the position with the understanding this will be funded through the gift account and will be continued based upon the continued availability of funding.
Second.
There's motion and second. Again, it's not that I don't want to support what you're requesting, but I think in fairness to other folks that don't have the availability for funds and still have legitimate concerns for this, we've been asking people to try to do it within the committee, so I have a tough time being consistent in voting it because a particular committee has the funds available and another one does not. You know, I just fairness to try to treat them all the same, but I understand what we're saying here, and it's, again, this is a lady who probably ends up doing it yourself if nobody else does it, and she's done that twice in other committees today, so there's a real, you know, she wouldn't be coming here unless there wasn't a need. Any other comments, thoughts?
Well, I hear what you're saying, we're trying to combat, and, you know, everybody, the new 2015 budget, we don't know what's gonna happen, if it comes to that point, that person, if there's no money, and it's not coming back out of the town, it's coming out of somebody, if somebody wants to gift it, just like if we're like Council on Aging, they have the Friends of the Council, and they wanna pay for it, and it's not coming any way whatsoever out of the town. And I don't have a problem with that. That's the way I'm looking at it. But I wouldn't pay for it. In other words, even if it was $10 to come out of the town, right now, the way we're cutting back on everything, everybody has to be on their own. And I think it's even a lot of these committees, there's no need to be paying a lot of people money to do a lot of note-taking, where today a lot of stuff is videotape and recording and all that, but that's my personal opinion on other things.
Any other comments? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I vote aye.
Oh, it's three ayes and chairs opposed. So it passes 3-1. Okay, next is a letter was received by Buzzards Bay Coalition requesting the town to submit a comment to the U.S. Coast Guard regarding new federal rules on transportation for oil through Buzzards Bay. Anybody take a look at that correspondence? Any comments, questions?
They've been going back and forth, Buzzards Bay with the Coast Guard, they want escorts for single hulls, double hulls, the last time they had to get the rocks, and they had the oil damage from all the way from Westport, all the way heavy, went into Fairhaven.
Buzzards Bay.
They just want a local pilot and a follow through. They wanna, in other words, they want for a letter from the board to support that. But right now, I think it's still under the postcard, they're still studying.
I think we have actually, according to this letter, we've signed on to this effort 3 times in the past, in 2005, 2006, and 2010, so I would accept the request, frame it in continued our support for their efforts in this area.
Motion?
Yes.
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, it's unanimous. Okay. Let's see, we're gonna go into executive session to approve the minutes, but before we do that, we'll go around the table. Questions, comments? Craig?
I'm all set.
We brought up at the meeting, and you thought it was a good idea, we should bring up that, just so the board knows, economic development, we're gonna look at an intern from UMass. There'll be a small stipend involved, which will come out of our budget of up to $500. Just letting the board know, it wouldn't be a permanent employee, it'd be a student from UMass stipend. If you need any more discussion on that, we can put it as an agenda item, but we just wanted to give you a heads up on that.
Yeah, I don't think we said we're gonna do the stipend, but I think they're gonna be able to do it with a fellowship.
Well, we hope so, but the board decided up to 500.
Yeah, but I think that was.
Well, if we don't get it, that's great, but it's still coming out of our money, so.
Well, it's just like we were doing here.
I know, but
We would
it's,
have to vote on it.
but it is to bring the website up. So, I mean, we used to have an internet person.
No, I'm just saying, I know what you're
Losing our staff over there.
So-
All right, anyway. if that
I'd like
needs-
to ask the press if they wouldn't mind, we're in an open session right now, and if you could just move away from the table here, and we'll try to be as
Just for a
courteous as we
minute.
can, but give us a minute here. Mr. Willett can't be heard.
No, that's fine, as long as the board's aware of it, needs more discussion, fine. We don't have a December meeting anyway, so if the board wants follow-up, we can do that. I think that's the gist of it, we touched base on everything else. Just to Jack, December 11th, if we're gonna have a meeting for training, we're gonna have that security meeting. So they're available December 11th and 12th, just so the board knows without going into too much detail in public. We're looking into the same security system that Dartmouth has for their schools in town to communicate. That's part of the thing we voted a while back to look into security. I have had concern from parents with the schools and whatnot, but again, without going in detail, just to let you know, it's still in the process. That's it, thank you.
What time is that?
We'll look at whatever time's available with the chief and the superintendent of schools,
Okay.
but he's available those 3 days.
I would still like to put it on the agenda, but I got some information that a letter was sent from the Board of Health canceling the abatement for septic system. I mean, that's something that was a town bylaw. We voted that for the town to do it, and I feel they had no right doing that until they came to the Board of Selectmen, so I have a real concern with that. I'd like to bring that up on the next meeting.
Yeah, Chip.
Yeah, I did talk to Jack about that, many things I threw at Jack when he came back today.
Yeah.
But there was a letter that went to DEP. I think the septic betterment program is certainly under the jurisdiction of the Board of Health. And the Board of Health and the Treasurer's Office, the accountant, yourself, all suggested that with the new guidelines by the state, it didn't make sense to continue the program. But certainly the Water Resource Committee felt pretty strongly about that, and maybe members of the board.
Well, we put it forth as an article at the town meeting last year.
Yeah. And the difference was that the article at town meeting, the assumption was the percentage was going to be 2%, and that's changed now. So the treasurer led the conversation, but the Board of Health felt it was no longer appropriate. The Water Resource Committee feels that there ought to be other options, even if we have to privatize doing this, it might be an option, because some people might not be able to get the home equity loan percentage that the treasurer was suggesting. Jack's going to look into that. We know there's some, in the Old Colony District, there's some folks that are doing it privately, and we're going to follow that up, so we will have it.
Yeah.
And Jack's going, he mentioned he was going to the Water Resource Committee meeting at the next next one in December.
Bring that up.
Because one of the issues that even though, well, again, I know we're gonna bring it back up, but one of the issues is that some people, okay, I could've got it for 2%, and now I gotta pay 3%. Okay, to them, they'll do it, because the only 2 things that's needed for that, you're up to date on your taxes, and you're up to date on your taxes, and you have a failed septic system. That's it. it's money in the state. If it doesn't come to Westport, it's going someplace else, and and we know we had over a dozen people that
Yep.
still wanted to fix their system. So what, they don't cost us anything, keep the money here. That was we'll discuss that more.
And again, Board of Health are elected officials, they may decide they don't want to do that, but it doesn't prevent the Board of Selectmen. We're still instituting the program through the Water Resource, and we could job it out if we had to or whatever,
Yeah.
but let's see what the options would be with it. Steve, you just gave me this Central Village
It's in our
Design
packet.
Guidelines.
Yeah.
It's in our packets this evening. On Tuesday, December 3rd, the Planning Board invites folks to a meeting, what's the time on this?
Is it 5:30 to 6:30?
5:30, Town Hall Annex, and it'll be Central Village Design Guidelines by the Planning Board. I'm gonna start charging them if we're gonna have to do their advertising.
Make the money somehow.
Any other questions? Any other comments? Jack, Steve, you're all set?
Good.
Do you want to make a motion to go into executive? Do we have the executive? I
Yeah,
couldn't find mine.
I just had them.
Maybe I left it on my
Executive
desk.
session.
I just had a
We'd entertain a motion to go into executive session.
I heard you scroll up, make a motion to go to executive session.
Second, Stephen will let me go into executive.
This is for just approval of minutes for